Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Regardless of Religion or Lack of Religion workshop of WCNA 31. My name is Joe, and I'm an addict. Hi. Okay, I don't have any announcements, so we're going to start the meeting straightforward. Can we please open the meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer? God, seek the things I cannot change. Change things I cannot. Please do not make this. And could we have Olaf come up here to please read what is the Narcotics Anonymous program?
Hi, my name is Olaf. I'm an addict. ผมชื่อ Olaf เป็นคนติดยาครับ coming from Thailand. What is the Narcotics Anonymous program? NA is a non-profit fellowship or society of men and women for whom drugs have become a major problem. We are recovering addicts who meet regularly to help each other stay clean. This is a program of complete abstinence from all drugs. There's only one requirement for membership, the desire to stop using. We suggest that you keep an open mind and give yourself a break. Our program is a set of principles written so simply that we can follow them in our daily lives. The most important thing about them is that they work. There are no strings attached to NA. We are not affiliated with any other organizations. We have no initiation fees or dues, no pledges to sign, no promises to make to anyone. We are not connected with any political, religious, or law enforcement groups and are under no surveillance at any time. Anyone may join us, regardless of age, race, sexual identity, creed, religion, or lack of religion. We are not interested in what or how much you used or who your connections were, what you have done in the past, how much or how little you have, but only in what you want to do about your problem and how we can help. The newcomer is the most important person at any meeting, because we can only keep what we have by giving it away. We have learned from our group experience that those who keep coming to our meetings regularly stay clean. Thank you.
Thank you, Olaf. And to read Why Are We Here, we have Dominic.
My name's Dominic. I'm an addict from Cebu, Philippines. Why are we here? Before coming to the fellowship of NA, we could not manage our own lives. We could not live and enjoy life as other people do. We had to have something different, and we thought we had found it in drugs. We placed their use ahead of the welfare of our families, our wives, husbands, and our children. We had to have drugs at all costs. We did many people great harm, but most of all, we harmed ourselves. Through our inability to accept personal responsibilities, we were actually creating our own problems. We seemed to be incapable of facing life on its own terms. Most of us realized that in our addiction, we were slowly committing suicide. But addiction is such a cunning enemy of life that we had lost the power to do anything about it. Many of us ended up in jail or sought help through medicine, religion, and psychiatry. None of these methods was sufficient for us. Our disease always resurfaced or continued to progress until in desperation we sought help from each other in Narcotics Anonymous. After coming to NA, we realized we were sick people. We suffered from a disease from which there is no known cure. It can, however, be arrested at some point, and recovery is then possible.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, somebody that I've grown up with in NA, and give you Danny Yu from Indonesia.
Hey everybody, my name's Danny, I'm an addict. Very nice to be at the World Convention, the 31st World Convention of Narcotics Anonymous here in Honolulu. The fact that I'm up here today and speaking would definitely fall in the category of beyond my wildest dreams. And I'm not even that scared. I'm sure if I was Archer or Derek last night in front of thousands of people, it would be a different story. But I'm kind of in the mood today. I'm having a beautiful morning. Woke up in a beautiful hotel room overlooking Diamond Head next to one of my favorite people on the planet, Johnny G from the Big Island. And I said to him the other day, usually when I wake up next to him in a hotel, it's a good sign. Either we're at a World Convention of NA or at a New York Yankees World Series baseball game or something. And the Yankees haven't been in too many World Series lately, but yeah. And I got a beautiful SMS from a fellow who I got clean with in New York, a guy by the name of Big Richie. And the SMS said, what would be it? Give me a phone. I forgot. SMS, like text message. What did he say here? Rocking in the free world, have an awesome time. Yeah? So that was just a nice way to start my day. The fact that I'm up here today is grace. Pure grace. I have a friend in New York that says, I possibly could be dead many times over. So this would be a bonus day on the planet. Another day of cake. And the fact that I'm an addict, and that I'm clean, and that I love Narcotics Anonymous, and that I'm at a world convention is a pretty powerful experience. And the way my life has been wired the last few years by my higher power, I get to move around the planet a lot. And I'm a meeting maker type of guy, so I go to meetings wherever I am. So I know a lot of people all over the planet. And I don't try to say that with any ego or arrogance. It's just the life that my higher power has colored for me. And so I get to come to a world convention. I get to see people from countries all over the world. And it blows my mind. It blows my mind. So beautiful to be here. So we have a topic. I need to talk on it. So we're going to try to focus on that. I'm a little bit confused by the topic, so I might need your help. I actually wanted to talk to Larry about it, but I got a phone call this morning that Larry was stuck in traffic on one of those highways coming through the mountain. So anyway, the topic says, regardless of religion or lack of religion. So I'm thinking I could go two ways with that. Let me go to the actual reading we have here. And what does it say? Anyone may join us, regardless of age, race, sexual identity, creed, religion, or lack of religion. So that, to me, kind of sounds like the third step. The third tradition, that our only requirement for membership is the desire to stop using. Yeah? And it doesn't matter. But we also have a thing in our third step that says God as we understand Him. And so that can be a religious God and can be a not religious God. So I don't know if I should be speaking on the tradition or the step or which direction to go. I don't know if you... What? Doesn't matter, he says. I'm not getting any help. Anybody have any ideas out there? Okay. Yeah, okay. I'll make it up as I go along. I'll just talk a little bit about the third tradition because I really love this tradition. I like the idea that Narcotics Anonymous is this wide, huge, worldwide, inclusive fellowship, right? A worldwide, inclusive spiritual fellowship. And the key word there for me is inclusive, right? The only requirement for membership is a desire. That's it. You're a member when you say you're a member. That's a beautiful thing to me, right? Anybody can walk through the doors, and we have nothing to say about that. You're here. You declare that you're a drug addict and you have a problem, and we're here to help. I got clean originally in New York, in Long Island. Yeah, a couple guys. Long Island's in the house today, including Joe. And so they used to, detail some of the traditions when they'd open the meetings, and they'd talk about the third tradition. And they'd say, the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using. And they'd say what that means is that you're a member when you say you're a member. No questions asked. Yeah? So we just kind of have this fellowship that exists. People might or might not have a problem. Somebody explained to me one day with World Services in the literature translation department, we're talking about, well, should we go ahead and make literature for countries that aren't asking for it, or how does that work? And that person said that we're not a missionary organization. We don't go out and look for members and seek people out. We're just kind of here, and if people need us, we are totally available and totally inclusive. And what a beautiful spirit behind that. I just love that feeling that just anybody can walk through the door. So, that's kind of my take on that particular aspect. I'll talk a little bit more about regardless of religion or lack of religion and what that means to me in terms of my own belief and my own high power. I'm one of the guys that came in here and I had a working relationship, not a working relationship, but I had a belief in a high power. That's basically all I had. I remember when I was about 3 or 4 years old, I was born into a particular religion. I don't know if I should mention that religion or not. You could probably figure it out anyway. But, okay, I'm a nice Jewish boy from New York. And that particular religion, they told me when I was 3 or 4 years old, they said, you are the chosen people. And on some level, that possibly could sound good to people, but at 3 or 4 years old, that did not sound good to me. I had some sort of perspective or wisdom or I don't know what, but I knew at 3 or 4 that didn't sound right. And I don't mean to invalidate anybody that might be Jewish in the house today. You know, I almost feel like I shouldn't have mentioned that. But I got it at 3 or 4 that if there's a God, there's one God, and that God's there for everybody, and that God is there how you choose to connect with that God. And that's my own belief. I don't mean to push that on anybody, but I tend to be somebody that shies away from religions that, for whatever reason, because I just like the inclusive God thing. Yeah, that's how it is for me. So anyway, at the age of 3 or 4, I had this kind of pretty cool awareness that there is one God, and that God's there for everybody. I proceeded to go the next 20 years without any relationship with the God. I spent the last 10 years of those 20 years doing drugs and disconnecting and having no connection, no conscious contact with the God or questioning the God. But I still had kind of this underlying belief that there was some force out there and that it was available to everybody, and it's kind of like a thread that runs through all of us. And then I landed in Narcotics Anonymous at the age of 26. And when I got here, I was kind of spiritually, I don't want to say bankrupt, but I was definitely spiritually dormant, right? There wasn't much inspiration going on in my life, and there wasn't much of a connect with my higher power. And I got here, and I was in that big self-centered bubble that a lot of us land here in. You know, I was just trapped in Danny, and the fear of Danny, and the insecurity of Danny, and I wasn't into the inclusiveness of the universe. I wasn't into other people at all. I was basically an isolationist and most comfortable being by myself. And so I landed here, and pretty clueless, yeah. And I don't know when it hit me. It probably took months. But, you know, at some point I tapped in where it said, God, as we choose to understand Him. And later on in my recovery, somebody told me that when they were formulating or when they had the original inspiration for the steps, they were kind of stuck on the God word, because God has a negative connotation to a lot of people from certain religious upbringings or whatever upbringings they have. And I heard that one of the biggest, inspirations they had is when they had God as we understand Him. As we understand Him was like a really big opening for that. And that's a beautiful thing for me. You know, I can come here and have the God of my understanding as that God continues to present itself in my life. And the way that God is presented to myself in my life, the primary way that I get it is from working the steps, right? So if you come here and you don't really have much of a relationship with a higher power, if you don't pick up and you go to meetings and you work the steps with a sponsor, you can't help but get some sort of relationship with a God. And I'm talking about a working relationship with a God. Yeah? I know the second step talks about coming to believe, and so I get to tap into some of those beliefs I had. But as I continue to work the steps and my higher power continues to open my heart in such a powerful way, this relationship just continues to blossom. And I have a working relationship with my higher power. I mean, it's there. I've had a pretty interesting year of some trials and tribulations and just like circumstances going on with work and with health and with a relationship. And it's been kind of like a difficult year for me. And thank God I have a working relationship with a higher power. Thank God I have that. I have a place to tap into that power or source, you know. I mean, the biggest thing that rocked me this year is that I fell in love with somebody. And I'm one of these guys that basically doesn't fall in love. I'm 46 years old, and I've only fallen in love twice. And I don't know. There's no victim behind that. It's Danny's life, yeah? And I won't even tell you I'm broken in the relationship department. I'll just say that I tend to travel the planet better single. Does that sound good? It's got a nice ring to it, yeah? There's probably defects in there. My sponsor's sitting here, so I'll talk to him afterwards about that. But, I fell in love, man. My heart opened. I love it when it happens. It's pretty cool when it happens, yeah? And I fell in love with somebody younger than me from another culture who likes to drink a lot, and, the circumstances didn't look great. My sponsor was there. You got to meet her, yeah? So did Big Richie, who sent me the SMS. But my heart opened, and when my heart opens, I got to go for it in this lifetime. I know that. So I went for it with this woman, and didn't last long. It was very powerful, very enmeshed, very codependent. The way I do relationship, I guess. And I won't say she was a gift from God, but I will say the fact that my heart opened and something happened for her was a God shot. And then a few months down the line, she had a change of heart. And I was thrown off kilter just a little bit for a long time. I mean, my reaction was grievous. I think I was only with her for about 3 months, and for about a month and a half, I was like crying every day. And I don't cry. I'm somebody that goes years without crying, yeah? And crying like every day. And actually, when I cry, it feels good. It's a good release for this particular addict, human being, to be able to release in that sort of way. And there were a couple times where I was like fetal position on the floor crying, like unbelievable pain. And I figure if I'm with her for 3 months, a month and a half seems like a long time to be like totally debilitated. So, but I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know what the story is. But anyway, I went through a situation. And one of the gifts of the situation was that, I know how to take the victim route and kind of go, why is this happening to me? And I tend to do that in certain areas of my life, especially in the business area right now. But in terms of this relationship thing, this thing went down, and I never once I was just with God in the whole thing. I just okay, what's going on here? Kind of like 11-step prayer. It's like, where do we need to go, God? What do you want here? And, I just really surrendered to my high power in that moment. And it was nice to have a working relationship. It's great to have a working relationship with a high power when stuff's going on that's not good. It's beautiful when things are lining in and the money's working and everything's dialing in and all your friends are good and you feel good. But in the situations, like the growing situations where things don't quite go the way we want them to go, that's the best time to have a relationship with a higher power. So this was nice. This was nice. It was difficult, but it was nice. And it was a situation in my life this year that just helped to energize my connection with my higher power. I'm currently involved with my 6th step, and I've been involved with it for a while, for months and months, and I know that this is part of my process as well. I'm like hard-headed. My high power has to shake me around. I also had a motorcycle crash this year, and that was definitely my 6th step, like kind of God, like whacking me. Like I had to like slow down. I was in Bali at that time when it happened. Anyway, that's another story. So I think I'm off the topic a little bit. I don't know. I'm talking directly about higher power, but it really says regardless of religion or lack of religion. So basically, the higher power is the higher power that you can have that's your intimate relationship with Source. And you can call that God anything, and you can get that God any way you want. It can be through religion, I mean, I'm in process. I'm in the 3rd set of steps that I've worked in my particular recovery. And every time I work a set of steps, my higher power cracks me wide open, and my heart opens wider, and new things show up, and I have new ways to connect with my higher power. And in this particular set of steps, one of the things that showed up for me, just as I was breaking up with this woman, was yoga. Now, I have to tell you that yoga is not NA approved, so I'm not speaking on behalf of NA when I say this, but I'm just somebody who's in process. And so what's shown up for me is this thing called yoga. And I used to meditate for 10 or 20 minutes in the morning. Now I meditate for 10 or 20 minutes, and then I do yoga for 40 or 50 minutes. So it feels like my whole meditation process is now over an hour. And I'm not telling anybody they should do yoga, but I will say that work steps with the guidance of the sponsor, and things will come to you that will help define that relationship with you and help to broaden and open that relationship for you. That's my experience in my own recovery, and that's also my experience in the recovery of sponsees and a lot of people that I've grown up with and that I've worked with. So, and I love it. I mean, I love it. I love it that I'm in process and that it continues to enlarge, yeah? And, sometimes my beliefs in my higher power kind of short-circuit what my higher power has to do. Every time I'm working a new step, I'm kind of thinking, how's HP going to work with me on this one, So HP's got to kind of come in the back door when I'm not looking, because I'm trying to figure it all out. So sometimes for me, the belief limits it, yeah, because the higher power is way bigger than anything I can conceive. And as I continue to be in the process, my grasp of the higher power becomes more expansive. And I try to have my higher power be as expansive as possible in terms of the belief of it. And it's gotten a lot bigger than when I had 6 months clean, that first higher power that began to emerge out of my first set of steps. And continues to emerge, So I'll tell you one other story. I know it's supposed to go 30 minutes, so I must be close to my time. So I was raised Jewish, and I did not access any sort of spirituality through the Jewish religion. And I know people that have accessed spirituality through the Jewish religion and through other religions. I live in a country now, Indonesia, where there's this, even though everybody knows it is the largest Muslim country in the world, it's written in the charter for the country that there needs to be freedom of religion. And they don't talk about my particular religion, but they talk about 5 particular religions. And you need to declare a religion when you're a citizen of that country. It's actually on your identity card. Yeah. So they're into this thing about choose a religion, whatever religion it is. Now, for me, I'm a little bit more expansive. I'm just saying, choose a path of spirituality, which can be a religion. Anyway, I accessed my spirituality and continue to access it through working the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. When I had about 7 years clean, I was given the grace of traveling for a year around the world with just me, my higher power, and a backpack. And it was one of the most powerful, empowering experiences I've had in my lifetime. And it wasn't even something that was on my radar screen. My higher power kind of presented it to me, and it was a pretty cool experience. So along the way, I decided I really wanted to go to Israel, because that's supposedly where it all started. And I wanted to just see if, with this newfound spirituality, I could connect with the religion that I was born into. So I went there, and I even had some fantasy that I could live in Israel. But I got there, and the energy that was going on just wasn't right for me, and I realized I didn't want to live there. And I went to Jerusalem, the old city where the original temple was, where a lot of people have these cathartic, spiritual experiences. And I thought maybe I'd have one of those. And I kept saying I have no expectations. Yeah. But I went there, and I didn't have the cathartic experience. And because I didn't have the cathartic experience, I was kind of down, actually. Yeah. So I did have an expectation. And whatever, I just had some sort of fantasy that I had the spirituality, and maybe I can connect it with the religion of my birth. But my experience was that didn't happen. And that's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just Danny's path. And it's just what happened, yeah? And there were other people at the wall that day that were having experiences that were very powerful. So I honor that, right? Everybody's experience is different, yeah? My relationship with my higher power is a real intimate thing that keeps being presented and open to me. And I honor that that is for everybody else, too. So whether I like other religions or I don't like other religions doesn't really matter. I know religion can be one of the roadmaps there. And that's why it says it in one of our readings, regardless of religion or lack of religion. But this addict's experience is that I've tapped into a very powerful connection directly through working the 12 steps. And other stuff has come in around that, like the yoga and some other stuff as well. And that's my experience. And I don't know if I've gone 30 minutes, but it feels kind of complete. So beautiful to be at a World Convention. Great, great energy here this weekend. Lots of aloha in the house, and it's good to be clean. And this is a bonus day for me on the planet. And thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Danny. Our next speaker is Larry R. from Hawaii.
Hi, everyone. My name's Larry. I'm an addict. Thank you, Judy. Boy. Like Danny said, I was racing to get here, stuck in traffic. I don't know. For those of you who know me, I'm not a natural, very comfortable speaker, being up before a microphone and in front of a lot of people, but I've done it before. I managed to do it again, and one thing I learned is it's not going to kill me. And actually, after I'm done with this, I might even feel better about myself. The thing about being late, though, I was so stressed that the stress of being late was getting greater than the stress of speaking. So all in all, everything worked out fine. But I'm one of those people, I'm going to try hard not to do it, that feels the need to, obviously, I need to talk a little bit just in general to get comfortable, to relax and get in a groove, I hope. But I usually, in that process, have a tendency to I already started at the very beginning of this meeting. I tell you how nervous I get, and how uncomfortable, and this isn't really my thing and everything. I figure, I guess, if I go on for 10 or 15 minutes, telling you how messed up I am, it kind of lowers your expectations of what you're going to end up. And so I figure maybe the best thing is when you're leaving here, well, that guy was okay for being so screwed up, So but I'll try not to do that, although I already snuck it in. You'll notice that. But, when I first And also, I don't know, when I was first asked to share on this topic, I said yes right away because I've learned in NA. I do say yes, even though I knew that I would go through this uncomfortable process as a result, But my head, my head clicked in, I can sometimes be very analytical about things, and I have to figure them all out. They have to kind of fit in a very neat little box so that I can get a grip on it and it makes sense, and then somehow everything's going to be okay if I can just come with that mental understanding. So, but, well, anyway, when I first look at it, I read it. I put it in the bigger context of what it says in our readings, and then I say, well, geez, what does religion mean anyway? So I go get the dictionary, you look up religion, and then you go and you look up regardless. Well, what does that mean? And then, in the dictionary it gives some other terms. And I say, well, what does that mean? Creed. What does creed mean anyway? And then after looking at the definitions of religion and creed, it says, I'm kind of a wannabe intellectual in a sense, because when I come up with some of these questions, I just can't figure them out. I read the definition of religion, I read the definition of creed, and if anyone can tell me the difference after the meeting, I'd be glad to have you inform me, because I couldn't quite get the subtleties, It's like sometimes shortcomings and character defects in our steps, some people can go on and on about the differences, and other people, just kind of throw up their hands and they just say they didn't want to use the same word twice. So, I don't know. But where I'm leading with all this is, since getting clean and getting over my initial obsession with drugs, the obsession to use, it's kind of like my mind clicked back in, which in some cases has been a good thing. In other cases, it's definitely been to my detriment to overanalyze and to have that need to know in such a fine detail that it really just leads to incredibly frustrating situations. But I guess that's in recovery, and like I say, having some time clean, it's almost sometimes kind of a little foible or luxury that I can engage in without getting too carried away. And when I do get too carried away, I find myself having come back to the basics, And when I first got, I'm going to have to relate this topic like Danny did, kind of to my own personal experience, because I'm really not very good at taking a topic per se and giving a very good subjective talk on it with all the different pros and cons, or this means that and whatever. I find that I'm always more comfortable when I bring everything back down just to my personal experience, my experience, strength, and hope, because that is all that I have to share with you, and I can try to relate any topic that I have to that, and that is what I hope to do. I actually feel like when I first came into this fellowship, I really wasn't doing very well, I had hit a pretty heavy physical bottom sometime earlier to actually finding my first meeting and getting clean, but I believe there are also other bottoms that we hit in either before we get clean or sometimes after we get clean. I'm talking about mental and emotional and spiritual bottoms. And I was pretty much at the end of the road in all categories when I first got clean. I had really not even known of any type of recovery that it was possible for addicts to get clean before I actually ended up in my first meeting. And just because I was hurting so much and, literally suicidal, my heart, like Danny was saying, was wide open, I used to joke about it a lot afterwards, if the first person I had met after getting to that stage was, a guy in robes shaking a tambourine at the airport, that's what I'd be doing today, because I was so wide open to anything. I was just at my bottom, But fortunately, I found my way to a meeting of recovering people and with friends who are, some of whom still in this room today, that I've known for 29 years. And it's truly an amazing gift to have that. But the point is, really, when I got clean, we believed in working the steps right away. So within the first week or two, I was doing the steps. And I didn't really give much, when they talked about in the readings that phrase, regardless of religion or lack of religion, I think it all just passed over my head. And I didn't really understand anything of what was going on, or the readings, or even sometimes when people were sharing. I just knew I was in the place I needed to be. I knew I was in a safe place. That's all I knew, and that's all I mattered about. Everything else just kind of went beyond me. So I didn't give too much thought to it at that point. Like I say, it wasn't until I got a little time clean and I got through that initial, I was just so open, vulnerable. I mean, I just was like a fresh piece of clay ready to be molded. And fortunately, I came into this fellowship who molded me and helped me grow in a way that's just been fantastic. But once my head started clicking in, I started trying to make a sense of everything. And when I got, I did my initial set of steps, and when I started on my a subsequent set of steps, boy, I had to know what every little word meant, and I had to figure it out. It was totally different. And I can see exactly, it let me know exactly why it's so important, especially for the newcomer, that they know that there just are absolutely no barriers to us coming into this fellowship, And I guess a lot of us, I'll personalize it, talk for myself. I came into this fellowship hauling along a lot of baggage from my past, from my growing up, a lot of preconceived ideas, a lot of ways of living that seemed to work when I was using, but didn't seem to work when I was clean. I had a lot of baggage with me. And religion, or lack of religion, both were part of that baggage, And it wasn't directly that I didn't grow up in a religious household, but through the circumstances of my life and what I saw around me and what I remember being told and things like that, I grew up or came away with a very negative. Not negative. I was scared to death of any kind of higher power or God. It terrified me because. Well, actually, I had really thought that through the circumstances of my growing up, I felt like, my life seemed to be such a mess, and I seemed to go through some things that I thought God, was just there as a punishing God, and that was just the way it was, and it wasn't really going to change. I didn't think much of myself, and I thought God thought the same, and even worse. In the beginning, when I did my first fourth step, it was always a struggle, even in subsequent fourth steps, because I always thought I was scared to dig too deeply, because if I thought I dug too deeply, I would find that place within myself that was unlovable by God. I thought that still existed within my heart for a long time, So it really kind of held me back for a long time to really becoming completely open. It's funny, the place I was in when I first got clean, it seems like in the years since then, my process of working the steps in this program has been discovering that actually, in many ways, that's where I would like to get back to. That place of simple faith, of just feeling that wide open and still having some sense that this is going to be okay. I am taken care of in some way. And not having to have the mental understanding of knowing how it's going to happen or in what way life is going to unfold. I just felt secure. I felt enveloped by a fellowship of very loving people and nurturing people that was so powerful that it overrid any fear that I had to pulling away. And I stuck around and I stuck with it. So like I say, though, after, I spent a long time realizing that, hey, that's actually where I would like to get back to eventually, And so in my last series of steps, that's kind of where I feel like what I've been trying to do is get that back to that place of simple faith and simple understanding, of living by my heart rather than by head, of living by an intuitive life, a life where I feel as connected as I can with God, that I can take actions or speak thoughts or be a way that I may not understand in the moment or might not make sense, yet I have the faith to do it anyway if it's coming from my heart. My journey seems to be leading me back to that place where I was when I first got clean. But we all, like I say, in regard to this, I think what our topic today is critically important, especially for the newcomer, that they do know that there really is nothing that they have to believe or accept or do in particular in order to be a part of this fellowship and to get clean and to stay clean and to have a useful, productive life and be in recovery. Because I know in going through the literature and everything, I used to, it says God many times, but I had connected up, God with with religion very closely, and I had connected up God with my particular point of view that was just an individual result of my growing up, and so everything was tainted by that in a sense, and I kept thinking, well, my first approach, in reading the literature and getting clean was that in some way I thought that somewhere in the literature I was going to find the magic answer, that told us in just kind of like one sentence, and this is the solution. And then once I found that, I could get up and go home and, just do whatever I wanted, So I guess, in the same way, I thought I had to come to terms with or believe in a God or become religious in a certain way. And it was I struggled with that for a long time, and it wasn't until, probably many years later that I kind of changed tact and just tried to discover. Well, it's been a natural process, actually. I work the steps. I clear out a lot of fear, a lot of garbage, a lot of misconceptions that I've learned over the years. And I have found as a natural result of that, a God of my understanding fills that void without me even consciously trying to create one. So I have tended lately to, work the steps, dealing with all the fears and things that I have, trying to discover what I'm really about in many ways, and just coming to terms with that without having to change it or be different and have that be okay in itself. I'm on my 11th step, right? Well, I want to say I'm on my 11th step. I've sort of entered into it, but then I feel like I kind of took a couple steps back because it's a little scary this time around. And I seem to be much more comfortable, making amends, telling people, oh, I really screwed up, and will you forgive me? I'm much more capable. I make amends differently than that too, but the idea is that I'm naturally more comfortable, in that frame of mind, rather than being in front of people and really owning up to who I believe I am inside, a loving, caring person who wants wants to love, wants to be loved, wants to be supportive and be a presence in people's lives and not have to perform or do any certain thing in order to have that all be a part of my life and to feel good about myself, That is where I would like to be. So this is where I'm getting kind of with my 11th step, where I am faced with really, really, really examining that concept within myself and trying to make it a part of my heart and soul and not something that I just been kind of talking about objectively. And that's a struggle. There's a lot of fear there for me. But kind of unlike Danny, I'm kind of sometimes, I know he's a softy underneath, don't let him fool you. But sometimes my soft side is kind of all too evident sometimes, I was in tears driving here. And it wasn't because I was stressed. I was stressed, but I was thinking about, sharing and how nervous I get and how sometimes I feel, just so vulnerable and how I was just, the fear was overtaking me. But then I clicked into and I was thinking about how many people are going to be here that I'm really close with and who care about me, and how many people actually made a point of coming here to support me in many ways because I think they know how uptight and how scared I get. And, so that thought that I have those people in my life as a result of being clean in Narcotics Anonymous is just totally overwhelming to me. Just totally amazing. And I don't know if I've spent my 30 minutes either, but I think I'm kind of at an end too. So, thank you very much, everyone, for sharing.
I'd like to thank both Danny and Larry for speaking, and at this time we'll open the mic for open sharing from the floor if anyone wants to share on the topic.
My name is Olaf. I'm an addict. Been here before for the reading, so it's a bit more easy to step up again. And I love the topic. I love my higher power. I was struggling to develop this connection to my higher power. I could get out a lot of what I heard, and I was raised Christian, and I was never really believing in this kind of God the church produces. I now live as a result of my commitment to NA and of 10 years clean time. I live in Thailand, and I feel much more comfortable with the religion I found over there, the Buddhism, and I was feeling really home when I came there, and I didn't know why in the beginning. And I'm not a Buddhist in this kind of meaning. I don't know much about the religion, but I know a little about the way of thinking, and I feel it's tolerance, it's love, and it fits to the NA program for me completely. I feel this program tells me you have to develop your connection to the higher power. This is one of the central parts of my program to do this. This is my job today. I need to develop my higher power, that I have the belief and that I have the strength and that I get guidance from this higher power to make my living and to find better decisions than I do on my own thinking. I'm one of the guys who like to think a lot and analyze too much. And on the other side, the heart is going down. And this is what this program teaches me: open your heart and try to live love, and that's where my higher power guides me to when I come here. And I'm very happy to be back on track. I was experiencing a time of of going down in my program short before 10 years. I heard a lot of us have this up and downs in recovery, and I was feeling I'd done enough, and I was going to the meetings less, and they were not available because I was suddenly able to travel around the world, and there was less meetings, I was going less, and the fun was going down, and suddenly after years of going daily, I was only attending 1 or 2 a week, and then at the lowest point there was 2 months where I didn't attend any meeting. And I'm very, very grateful that I found the way back without relapsing, and that I'm committed again, and that I love to go to meetings again as I used to do it in the beginning of my recovery. And I thank everybody for letting me share and listen to me and being part of this convention. Thanks, everybody.
Aloha. My name is Bruce. I have the disease of addiction. I'm one of God's greatest miracles. I love saying that. That's probably the nicest thing I can say to myself every day, that I am a miracle. And that's as a result of being in these rooms and listening and learning that I don't have to get into figuring everything out. And I can just learn as I go. Kind of like, like little erector sets we had when we were boys, some of us. Kind of just learning as you go and making a lot of mistakes along the way. Sometimes they fall apart and you start again. But my clean date is June 19th, 1981. And I say that because that's not any of my part except having the willingness to keep coming and coming and coming and not picking it up and being of service. But, I was thinking about something that I remember Karl Marx said a long time ago. I don't think I'm breaking Karl Marx's anonymity, I think. But he said that religion is the opiate of the people. And I started thinking to myself, well, I loved opiates, so why don't I love religion? I like to laugh in recovery. I think that the more we laugh, the less we think. And that's an important part of this. See, I was born Jewish. Difference between Catholic people and Jewish people are Catholic people are told that they're sinful right from their birth. Jewish people are just taught that, enforced that they're guilty, 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 guilty. Now, either way, it comes down to the same thing. Somewhere along our way, we were told, you don't quite make it. You don't measure up. You're not good enough, and all the other things that go along with that. And that happens to be what happens, not in all faiths, but in the way that things are taught in religion a lot. I know that this program is based on Judeo-Christian backgrounds. That's what they told me from the beginning, and that's what I believe was going on. Now, I was in Japan many years ago, and they told me they had a problem with the concept of God, because in Buddhism, there is no concept of God. So that became a dilemma for them. And everywhere else, there's always going to be a dilemma. But this regardless of, for me, is bigger than just regardless of religion. That's a paraphrase of what we're talking about. And if we spent the whole time talking about religion versus non-religion, spirituality over religion, we'd be getting bogged down in one simple thing. The beauty of regardless of is that it doesn't matter who you are, where you came from, how much or how little you have, but only what you want to do with your problem and how we can help. The rest of it, like I said before, we get as we go along. I got as I went along. So I went through the same thing that Larry did. Larry, right? In terms of, let me back up for a minute. I believe that everybody here, if you admit it to yourself inwardly or you admit it outwardly, are just spiritual seekers who took wrong turns. They all led us to the same place, which was the 12 steps of recovery in Narcotics Anonymous. These 12 steps are a perfectly divinely guided guide. If you believe in divinity or if you believe in a universal spirit, it doesn't matter. But somehow or other, All of these are absolute truths that every one of us, when we live by, we get weller and we learn how to love one another. And in 12th step, it talks about having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. It doesn't say having found God. It doesn't say having found Hinduism, Mithraism, Zoroastrianism, Christianity, or anything else. It just says having had a spiritual awakening. For me, that's the promise that was in the second step. The restoration to sanity gives me the ability to know who I am and what I am and why I'm here. I had a great teacher who said, when you ask the question, what am I doing here and why am I here? You have started your spiritual journey. You have started on the way to finding out the answer to that. And spiritual awakening is finding out the answer to that. And it's not for me about caring about what religion I grew up on. I have a great heritage, and I value many, many parts of my heritage. Like anything else, you take what you need and you leave the rest. And that's how this all works for me. I remember coming in being Jewish, listening to the Lord's Prayer many years ago. And I said, oh, shit. I don't get on my knees, I'm Jewish. I bend my knees, but I don't get on my knees. I don't say prayers that are Christian-based. Why am I here? But I was hungry enough and thirsty enough and desperate enough to know that this is where I needed to be, and regardless of what prayer it is, and I still don't care what prayer it is, I need to be in a circle at the end of a meeting and in the beginning of the meeting saying a prayer. The Serenity Prayer for me is great because I asked God at that time to teach me something new. And if there's anything I have to share, let God share it through me. And that's important for me. I don't stammer a lot because I don't try to be clever in meetings. I learned a long time ago, the more clever I try to be, the more stupid I'll be. So I'd rather be stupid and happy and joyous and free than anything else. But this regardless of, for me, is I have that same teacher talked about the spirit of welcome. That when a newcomer walks in this door, and if he says, I'm a pot smoker, if he says, I'm an addict, alcoholic, if he says I'm an alcoholic overeater, the only thing that is important for all of us is to say, welcome, glad you're here, keep coming back. No, that's it. And I'm not going to get on any soapbox with that, but my heart tells me from a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps that there's a unity found within the human spirit, within the heart, where God dwells for me, that shows me that as I look around, I don't see a girl here. I do see pretty girls. That's true. But what I see mostly is the essence of a human being who is just as I am, one of God's greatest miracles. And that's what I see. And it doesn't matter whether I'm in these rooms or I'm out on the street. I smile at people. I ask them, how is your day? And that's what's important. How was your day? How was your day? And religion goes away when we find spirituality. What I do in this program, to use it as in that way, I religiously come to meetings. I religiously work my steps and live by my principles. Those are the things I do. In another culture, it'll be called spiritual practice of sadhana. But all of that has to do with all of this. Every time I'm in a meeting, this is the place of a meeting of hearts. Now, it's not anybody's religion. It's just a meeting of hearts who want to do one thing. Want to stay clean, want to find a way to be happy, joyous, and free. And none of that has to do with religion. That has to do with the Spirit. And it does say, and we do recover, that this is a spiritual, not religious program known as Narcotics Anonymous. And I thank God for all of you. And I thank God I'm in such a wonderful place that I call paradise, because I'm here inside in paradise. Not so much because it's Hawaii, but it helps. And I thank you all for being here for me.
Hi, everybody. I'm an addict. My name is Maurice. I'm from New York. And This is one of the meetings I really wanted to go to. This has been an issue in my recovery right from the beginning, religion and lack of religion, for a few different reasons. I was brought up by parents who are, I don't know if they're atheists, but they're very anti-religious, period. It's part of their upbringing. They were brought up in a very religious environment, and it was a very negative experience for them. So they translated that onto myself and my stepbrothers and half-brothers. And so when I came here, I had a big problem, And when I was, I'm a product of the '60s. So when it came to running around with beads and teepees and hanging out in India and going to all these places, I loved going to temples and hanging out with sadhus, but it was always about getting high. There was zero, like somebody else, I had no awakening of the spirit. I didn't understand anything. I just dug all the ritualistic stuff. I like that when I got high. I liked all the fetishism and ritual was a big part of my using. So, I thought that's what I needed. I thought that was being cool. But I had zero awakening of the spirit. I had no understanding about spiritual principles. Any type of religious education that I fought against or never went to was always about, chanting prayers in foreign tongues. I couldn't understand a thing. So it was just not there, and I had no understanding of it. It wasn't until I came into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. And again, it was made very clear to me, this is like many people have said, it's a spiritual, not a religious program. But the dilemma came up again. I have 4 kids. I have 4 sons and a stepdaughter. So my wife and I have 5 kids. My first 2 sons, their mother was Jewish. My other son and my stepdaughter, Roman Catholic. My present son, his mother's Greek Orthodox. So all of a sudden, I would have a religious war in my house, and they're all coming home with all this stuff, like, how come, because one of them went to Catholic, we lived in Manhattan, Lower Manhattan, the schools were bad, some of the kids went to Catholic school. So that, me not knowing anything, I go into the school, I tell you, something? My daughter's going into this Catholic school, but don't you teach her that Jews have horns, or anything like that. I was back in the Middle Ages or something, and it was a nun, and she was dressed up like a normal person. I thought she was going to be wearing all the nuns' clothes. And she laughed at me and she said, you see that kid? He's Muslim. You see Rashid? He's a Muslim kid. You see this little kid? He's Indian. You see that little kid? He's Jewish. Are you crazy? She just made fun of me, and really put me at ease. And, that was an issue though, but because on the one hand, I have my own set of beliefs about a higher power, to be loving and caring. It's not tied to any particular religion, but I have children, and I live in reality. They put on the TV, they see Christians and Muslims killing each other. They see Jews and Muslims and Christians at each other, and they get all caught up in that, my oldest son, one of them was Jewish. All of a sudden he's on his way to Israel to join the army or something, and they don't understand. They're just repeating stuff, that they see on TV. They have no understanding that why this is, or they don't understand the difference between ethnic identity and personal and religious beliefs. So I've had to develop something that I could transmit to my kids that's universal. I just saw an old friend of mine from Detroit. Anyway, so it's not something I could hide in the sand about, we live in society where religion is in the forefront in a lot of issues. And how do I relate this to my kids at the same time, getting some kind of personal beliefs? And, among the many gratitudes, now that I'm clean, is that I now have a set of spiritual principles. We talk about the 12 steps and the 12 traditions, because I learned something. Like if I replace the word group with the word family in a lot of the traditions, I could relate that to my personal life, to me and my family. And, that's another one of the meetings I'm going to. There's a meeting about family that's, I think, later in the afternoon. How do you relate recovery to family and kids and wife and ex-wife and all this stuff, and apply the spiritual principles in all our affairs, It's a big issue, but this thing about religion or lack of religion, I go to an 11-step meeting. I need a constant connection. I need a loving and caring God. I get fearful. I need that faith, But the faith doesn't have to be through religious rote. It doesn't have to be by me memorizing some prayers in a foreign language I can't understand. It could be just me having a relationship with a loving and caring God, and not being fearful and negative. My mother's still alive. My father isn't. And when I tell her, I go, she knows I'm in recovery. I've been clean for over 16 years, and she still thinks she's still going to those religious things. She's like really negative about anything dealing with, that this is a spiritual. I tell her it's spiritual. You don't have to go to a psychiatrist here. You don't have to take medicine and pills here. This is about a relationship with God. It's almost I'm embarrassed to tell her, and I'm 56 years old. I'm clean for a while. But I do, and I try and I said, maybe you'd be less fearful about dying and more open about your past if you had a relationship with a loving, caring God. And it's good, I'm talking about, I'm 12-stepping my mother into something, it's pretty freaky. But anyway, I love being here, and as I've heard many times said to me, if nobody's told you, I love you all, and that's it for me. Thanks.
My name's Donnie Blackwolf, and it took me about 9 years to add the second part of my name to my name, because this fellowship loved me long enough to allow me to put that in there. It's good to meet you. I'm recovering from the disease of addiction today. I just want to tell a quick little story about my friend over here, my fellow moondoggy. I can remember a year or so or more ago getting a phone call, and before I know it, we're both in a rent-a-car on the top of Mauna Kea because we know the full moon's going to rise and we'll be able to see it from both sides of the mountain. And we're headed up there to say a prayer and honor that moon, that full moon, as it comes up out of Hilo Bay and watch the sun set in Kona Bay. And it's one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had, and if you ever get the chance to do that, I suggest you do. And I'm doing my thing because I have my spiritual practices, and Danny's doing his thing, and we're just both there. Two recovering individuals doing what we need to do to be clean for a single day. Spiritual is who I am. It's not what I am anymore. Spiritual is who you are. It's not what you are. I really believe that. People say, oh, I'm part this, I'm part that. And my first thing I want to say is, well, which part? Your big toe? Your left ear? What part? It's a wee thing that I've learned here. I like what one of the other gentlemen said. It says, as a result of having had a spiritual awakening. One of my first sponsors told me, he goes, don't worry about that, you'll get there. Because the 12th step talks to us about having had a spiritual awakening as a result of some steps. And then he went straight to the third tradition that said the only requirement for you to be here is the desire not to use drugs anymore, to stop using. And I'm like, oh, cool, because it took all the pressure off of, I got to find a God, I got to get, it's like, it took all the pressure off. Because my connection's always been there. I just was ashamed to let it out because it's not what everybody else does, It's not Judaic or Catholicism, or it's not that. It's not like what's socially acceptable in a lot of ways. And it is, but I didn't see it that way when I first got here. And so, what I've learned, in the short time that I've been coming around here is that every single person in this fellowship is going to love you until you learn to love yourself and accept yourself. And as a result of me learning to love and accept myself and love and accept you, I learned to love and accept my higher power. And it's something about relationships that I want to go into here real quickly because it's real important about, spiritual or lack of, or religion or lack of. It's like, I have a relationship with a higher power of my understanding today. And I do my work in order to nurture that. Some people go to church. I go to sweat lodges and sun dances. Some people do what they need to do. But I'm willing to do that work today because I know the feeling that comes from not doing that work. I spent a good part of about a year and a half ago, about 6 months, of turning my higher power and my will and my life over to another human being, which is very unhealthy. And if you don't ever have to do that, please don't, because it's real painful when that human being can't fulfill what you need. So I've learned that if I am willing to do the work to maintain a healthy, loving, intimate relationship with my higher power, that my higher power is going to develop a healthy, loving, intimate relationship with myself, which is kind of like second, third, 11th step is talking about for me. And today I have that. I have people in my lives, both in and out of recovery, who love and honor me regardless of my spiritual affiliation or none. I didn't even have to. I was told I didn't even have to believe there's a God. I just needed to show up and be willing. And people like Danny and a few other people around here have taught me that. We don't care who or what you are, only what you want to do about your problem and how we can help you. And to me, that's when I saw this thing. That's what this is about. I love you whether you're Catholic, whether you're Buddhist, whether you're none of the above. I still love you. Every single person I've ever met in the fellowship, and I've met a few people in a few years, have loved me in spite of my wanting them to. And that's really what it is for me. That's what my higher power keeps telling me, is that I'm loved, I'm taken care of, and I don't need to be afraid of that. I can choose to be, but I don't need to be afraid of that. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Hi, my name is Michael, and I'm an addict. Thank you, Danny and Larry, for being willing to come up here and talk about such a huge subject. It seems to be the can of worms usually that affect people so differently for this subject. But for myself personally, you guys inspired me to think back about why I'm in Narcotics Anonymous, and basically with the higher power, I think it's wonderful when somebody has something they can believe in, whatever that is. And as far as the seriousness of the program, though, I have 2 daughters that are 12 and 18. And I think back to 3 years before I was born. My mother was 13, and she was 16 when I was born. But when she was 13, she was walking home from school and had never kissed a boy. And 4 men in their 40s kidnapped her for 12 hours. And this is in the 50s, and having been able to escape or be left, her parents put her in juvenile hall that night, calling her a whore. Now, by the time I was 7 and she was 22, that'd be the first time that I would help her to avoid death by suicide. So there's the higher power right there, because that human being needed somebody in her life, because everybody had turned on her that ever meant anything to her. And when I was 28, the higher power came to me, and that I think everybody, maybe some of us can relate, when I considered taking my life and I was alone in a home. Higher power came to me with a statement that reminded me of what my dad said: when the shit hits the fan, something good's going to happen if you can hang in there. And I thought, boy, something really good is going to happen there, because this is some serious shit. I got the pills in my hands, and I'm going to take them. But the program of Narcotics Anonymous helped both of my parents, who were they shot hard drugs, they drank heavy. They had a lot of madness in their life, a lot of harshness. I had actually 4 stepfathers, so my mother, there was a lot of madness, a lot of drug addiction and chaos and violence and death and all kinds of stuff going on, And a child can get an idea that that's a normal way of life, and it's a war out there, and that's who I am. I think of life as like it's a war. It's the enemy trying to destroy, and it's somehow, I wish I wasn't here. But thanks to this program, all of that stuff changed, and all of a sudden there was a purpose behind it now that says my past is now my greatest asset, that I can have empathy for people. And and they can have empathy for me and help me to learn to love myself. Because I believe it's true. The word recognize really means something. I can't recognize something unless I have it. You know. And so as far as religion, you know, I believe that whatever someone does believe will happen for them. And that's based on and we take it a step further. When I came into the program, step 2, remember perception and everything. Well, you know, Narcotics Anonymous helped my father to find a higher power. That he's been a minister of a faith where he lays hands on the terminally ill. And cancer is removed and things like that. I saw him pray for a child that was dying, had swallowed poison, and was literally dying in front of us. And that child got up and went outside and played after he laid hands on the child. So how would I not believe that higher power could restore me? And also the family around me. You know, my mother and father are well now. All my mother's sons are all clean and sober. You know, restoration of... You know, my madness drove my children's mother away from all of us. I had to raise my kids since they were 5 and 2. It's been a lot of treachery, but this program allows all of that to make sense. And now I've been given a purpose. At least this shit makes sense. It wasn't for nothing. Yeah. And so that's why I'm going to stick close with the program here. And I you know, just in closing, last night. I've been able to have the pleasure to get to know Archer a little bit, one of the speakers last night's opening ceremonies. And, you know, standing in front of her afterwards, it was like I was looking at an angel of light. You know, it was just, everybody's perception is their own. Mine is I just see so much good in people because that's all I've been looking for. And I don't really have time to see bad. And if it's pointed out to me, I try to see something good in that to tell the person back, because I really don't want to see bad in people. We're all doing the best we can. I believe that to be true, and that's what I love about this program is there's a bunch of miracles walking around with restoration in their lives and their families, and I think I'm going to have to thank somebody besides myself for all that. So I'm going to choose to thank you folks, as a matter of fact, because that is the higher power to me. Is all these great stories that I've been hearing. That has helped me to not look over my shoulder when things are going well, thinking shit's about to hit the fan. I can actually enjoy it now. Thank you very much.
My name is Kermit and I'm an addict. I'm clean today through the grace of God and Narcotics Anonymous. And grace is undeserved favor. There wasn't a damn thing I could do or not do to get what I have today. And I'm truly blessed. I walked into my third treatment center in September of 1981. And after 4 or 5 days of detoxing, they let me go to a meeting. And by the grace of God, he picked me up in one side of the state of Virginia, drove me 3 hours to the other side, where 30 days before I got there, they started a Narcotics Anonymous meeting in that treatment center. You know? And I walked into that meeting, I weighed 150 pounds less than I do today. My hair was matted up, my tooth was chipped in half, my skin was yellow, I was in blue pajamas, and when I sat down in the meeting, I knew that the women were checking me out. Regular stud muffin, right? My world was so crazy, I had to build a world around me that I could feel comfortable in. And by the grace of God, they said I never had to use again a day at a time for the rest of my life in Narcotics Anonymous. And in 4 days, I'll be celebrating 24 years clean. And I'm not the person that I was when I came here. You know, the 12 steps, in my humble opinion, is an organized way to take us from being totally self-centered to totally God-centered. And to me, God-centered, I don't know what that is to you, but to me, a God-centered person is someone who's healing inside and is being of service to others. You know, and through my course, I've had prayers, you know, and I heard something on about, you know, there's certain things that you add to this program and other things you let go, but there's some things that you just keep adding to, and my sick mind decided that was my prayers, and that I would never drop a prayer. I would just add another one on. So my morning prayers, you know, started out with stuff like, you know, God, help me stay clean today, because that's what they told me. You know, ask God to keep you clean in the morning, thank Him at night. Don't worry about who, what it is. Just, you know, do the footwork. You know, it's like bring your ass and your brains will follow. And I did that, and then my prayers grew, you know, and I added things to them. And I got a hold of the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous in its rough draft form. And in there they had this literature prayer. And it talked about, they prayed it every time they wrote literature. And if you want to know where it is, it's in the introduction of our basic text. And it talks about, God, relieve us of the bondage of self, that we may write according to your divine precepts. Instill in us a bond of selflessness, and, so that we may carry your will and not ours, so that no addict seeking recovery need die from the horrors of addiction without having had a chance to find a new way of life. And I add on to that, so we may bear witness to the miracle. And the miracle is when one heart touches another. And I pray that, you know. I ask God to relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may carry His message and not mine, so no addict seeking recovery need die. And I do that before, you know, every morning and every night. And I do that when I sit in an NA meeting in the moment of silence. And I do that before I get up at the podium and share to, you know, people around the world. And that simple prayer has transformed me into a person that I never thought I could be. You know, someone whose whole life and thinking is about carrying the message. You know, is about service. You know, people ask me, what do you do for a living? I say, well, I just do something that keeps, you know, between the times that I serve people, because that's what my life's about. You know, my father was a young Jewish kid in World War II, and he liberated the concentration camps at Bergen-Belsen, and he turned his back on God that day. So that's what religion was in my house, and God was in my house. My wife says the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous, the only thing they do is they put us on a level playing field with the rest of humanity. And I was like, God, that's all I ever wanted, you know, just to be at the same level with the rest of the world. Thanks.
Okay, I'd like to thank everybody who shared today, and I'd like to thank the speakers again, Danny and Larry. And to read, we do recover. We have Tom.
I'm Tom, very grateful addict. We do recover. Aloha. When at the end of the road we find that we can no longer function as a human being, either with or without drugs, we all face the same dilemma. What is there left to do? There seems to be an alternative. Either go on as best we can to the bitter ends, jails, institutions, and death, or find a new way to live. In years gone by, very few addicts ever had the last choice. Those who are addicted today are more fortunate. For the first time in man's entire history, a simple way has been proving itself in the lives of many addicts. It is available to all of us. This is a simple, spiritual, not religious program known as Narcotics Anonymous.
Okay, we'll close in the usual manner, form a circle around the room, and the third step prayer. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Regardless of Religion or Lack of Religion workshop of WCNA 31. My name is Joe, and I'm an addict. Hi. Okay, I don't have any announcements, so we're going to start the meeting straightforward. Can we please open the meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayer? God, seek the things I cannot change. Change things I can. Please do not make us. And could we have Olaf come up here to please read what is the Narcotics Anonymous program?
Hi, my name is Olaf. I'm an addict. From to Olaf เป็นคนติดยาครับ coming from Thailand. What is the Narcotics Anonymous program? NA is a non-profit fellowship or society of men and women for whom drugs have become a major problem. We are recovering addicts who meet regularly to help each other stay clean. This is a program of complete abstinence from all drugs. There's only one requirement for membership, the desire to stop using. We suggest that you keep an open mind and give yourself a break. Our program is a set of principles written so simply that we can follow them in our daily lives. The most important thing about them is that they work. There are no strings attached to NA. We are not affiliated with any other organizations. We have no initiation fees or dues, no pledges to sign, no promises to make to anyone. We are not connected with any political, religious, or law enforcement groups and are under no surveillance at any time. Anyone may join us, regardless of age, race, sexual identity, creed, religion, or lack of religion. We are not interested in what or how much you used or who your connections were, what you have done in the past, how much or how little you have, but only in what you want to do about your problem and how we can help. The newcomer is the most important person at any meeting, because we can only keep what we have by giving it away. We have learned from our group experience that those who keep coming to our meetings regularly stay clean. Thank you.
Thank you, Olaf. And to read Why Are We Here, we have Dominic.
My name's Dominic. I'm an addict from Cebu, Philippines. Why are we here? Before coming to the